The March 1st Harnett County Board of Commissioners work session to order. Welcome everyone here and ask Vice Chairman Nickel to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and the invocation.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's pray. Lord, thank you for another beautiful day. Lord, I pray that you lay your hands on everyone that is hurting across the world today, Lord. Lord, please be with our law enforcement, with our military, and with all of our first responders, Lord. Every day is a trying time, it seems. I just ask that you please be with them, give them protection so they may give us protection as well, please. Lord, I pray that you be with this board today of county commissioners as we go through business. Be with us so we can make the best decisions for this county in the future. In your name I pray, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Commissioner Nickel. All right, before we start through the agenda, I have one item that need to add. We'll move the county manager's report to item 13, and we'll add item 12, discussion of the Magnolia property in Dunn and the disposition of that. If no one has an objection, we'll make that change. Okay. All right. At this time, we will open up a discussion on the soil and water conservation request. Ms. Lambert and Mr. Price.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the board. Hope everybody's well this morning. Before you, on item number 3, Lynn and I have a couple of things really, and she just got one Friday that we kind of want to discuss to get your permission to apply for a couple of grants. As you're well aware, the area that we're looking at as far as the mitigation and to the drainage in this particular area. I know Commissioner McCoy and Commissioner Matthews, as well as the rest of the board, has put a lot of time, energy, and effort on this, and I think we've got a couple of opportunities that the General Assembly is working with us on, trying to give us some funding. But we've got Golden Leaf grant application, and then Lynn just got information that she wants to share that on Friday that we'd like to apply for another grant. So we had kind of about a $500,000 threshold is what we were looking at as far as what Wetland Solutions study did to this, as you're well aware, as far as mitigation of this particular area. So I'm going to let Lynn come and explain a little bit about the timeline of the Golden Leaf and ask your permission to apply for $250,000, and then she's going to explain the grant that she just got on Friday to make sure you're comfortable with applying for another $250,000. So.
All right, good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
So hopefully you all have already seen in your package the request to apply for the Golden Leaf Foundation funding. It's for their flood mitigation program, of course, for the Fund Level Irwin Road Riverside area there to help offset some drainage concerns that have been ongoing in that community for a number of years. Based on the third-party study that we had completed, which was sort of a watershed assessment of the area, it was determined that about $500,000 are needed to meet the needs for the community on private property alone. We have already communicated with DOT and shared the request that involves what DOT would need to handle in the area, and so this would be drainage throughout the community as a whole on non-DOT related properties. So for the Golden Leaf grant, we are asking permission to apply for $250,000 in order to help offset some of the cost of these drainage improvements that need to be done to existing stormwater infrastructure that has quite a bit of age on it, has been in place for quite some time. This is a rolling application period, so there is not one set deadline, but the Golden Leaf Board meets approximately every other month, and so we would like to go ahead and submit that application as soon as possible, so that we can be certain and hopefully obtain some funding to help these folks in the community and begin actually the project work on the ground before the next hurricane season comes. In addition, I received an email from Joe Stanton. He had called me a couple weeks ago and said that he thought that a opportunity may come available that would be suitable for this project, but they had not worked the details out of it. And so I received a message from him again through email from the State Emergency Management Office about the opening of the Emergency Management Disaster Relief and Mitigation Fund grant program. So I quickly looked over this information, and it does look like our project would be well suited for what they're looking to fund with this project. Overall, at the state level, there's been $15 million that has been allocated through the state budget, and they expect to fund between 5 and 30 projects. Either. So there is no cost share, no match, and it is on a reimbursement basis. And so if you would allow, since this one is short notice and the deadline is March 31st, we would like to go ahead and ask your consideration for applying for the balance of the remaining $500,000 that we need for this project and apply for $250,000 for this grant opportunity as well.
Correct me if I'm wrong, with the rolling grant on the Golden Leaf, are we comfortable with putting in for the April call for that? So it'll kind of time out about right, so we'll have 250 on the one she just mentioned, 250 on the other. That one's due March 31st, and then the board, I believe, meets in April on the Golden Leaf, so kind of time together as far as the concerns there.
Thank you for that. That was going to be my question, when the next Golden Leaf meeting would be, if we'd be able to be prepared for that. Very good.
Yep.
I know this is something that we've talked about many times, something that Commissioner McCoy has that's been one of her high priorities. What's the, any further questions or comments from any of the other commissioners?
Yeah, I don't see any reason why we should not embrace the efforts to proceed to try to secure these grants.
That being said, would it be acceptable to the commissioners to put this on our consent agenda for Monday?
Yes, sir.
That'll give you time?
That would be, yeah, that would be great. And what we'll do is I'll have Lynn send you the information she just got Friday, so you can understand the state office, what she said there as far as the other grant. So you'll get then we'll put that in the packet as well, but then you'll have it. Got it.
Madam Clerk, will you put that on the consent agenda for Monday?
Mr. Chairman, may I speak?
Yes, ma'am.
I want to thank the board, and I want to thank Lynn and Coley for all your efforts in doing this. This is long overdue. Those people have been living in distress for many years, I would say decades. When I went down, took one of our state representatives down, they could not believe the conditions that those people were living up under. And I want to say this. It has started to affect citizens in that county's health. So believe me when I say what you have done is the right thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, board.
Thank you, Commissioner McCoy. I think the rest of the board's in agreement with you on that, on your sentiments. Okay, item 4. Carl, we'll talk about Parks and Recreation out at Shawtown.
Yes, sir. Let me give you kind of a brief history on the Shawtown Community Park before I kind of get into the project ordinance. Back in 2008, 2018, we started having community meetings. So I know Ms. McCoy was at those with the community when we started looking at the demolition and renovation of the elementary school out there. And part of those conversations, we talked about the needs and the wants of the community in putting a park at that site. So from that point, we looked at a concept plan based off of what we heard at those community input meetings and came up with a plan which was very lavish and and expensive, but we felt like we could kind of do a lot of it on our own versus doing contractor prices. So we started kind of working and whittling our way towards that plan over the years. We put in a basketball court, outdoor basketball court, in 2019, and then we put a walking trail in last year. With plans to go ahead and do a lot of the other park elements at that same time. CIP project was in 2021 budget year that we moved that to 2022 because we had an opportunity to go after a grant with the state. And so we were waiting on that before we went ahead and did a project ordinance for the playground, picnic shelter, and some other couple other elements. We have gotten that grant. That's $100,000 for basic playground improvements at Shawtown, and are now ready to go ahead and proceed with the playground, picnic shelter, some parking improvements, connections throughout. So that's where we're at, and also signage on the park. Obviously, we took into mind when we did all these plans of who was going to be using it. At one time, we had just the community, and then obviously it's grown over time with PAL being out at the site and Boys and Girls Club having a large presence out there also. So, we felt like the larger playground, larger picnic shelter will be more beneficial for both the group and the community, then also the groups that are using the facility. So, like I said, the money was already in the CIP program. And I think we had originally asked for $130,000. It was coming out of the Parks Capital Reserve Fund. But we have lowered that cost because of the grants. It's still, it's not lowered because obviously equipment and everything else has also went up in price since we originally put the funding in. And then also, with the grant, we also decided to go with a larger picnic shelter, larger playground. So there's a little bit more expense there, but obviously lower than what we originally asked for in the CIP. Questions?
Any questions concerning this?
I don't, this is, must be.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't have any questions about it, but I do want to let the public know that this is part of economic development growth too. Mm-hmm. We have a Head Start out there. The house is pretty close to 200 kids. All kind of kids. You should see, it's just awesome to see those little teeny kids out there. Again, I think that this is something that's valuable to Harnett County because of what we have out there. Then the Boys and Girls Club, it's just a miracle what they have, what it has done for this county and for this community. So I want to let you know that this is just not a park. This goes into our economic development plan with jobs and providing jobs for this county and all of that, because they have an awesome staff out there. So, and if it wasn't for this Head Start, many parents wouldn't be able to keep their jobs. So you have to look at things in so many different ways. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner McCoy. Mr. Davis, are there future plans to add athletic fields? What's the future? What are you looking down the road at?
So there'll be a couple different amenities we'll put out there. I think we've got a couple other things planned. Community gardens planned out there, fitness stations going around the walking trail, but the site doesn't actually set up for space-wise for athletic fields. We could put in some small multi-purpose fields where people can get out there and play, but for actual athletic competition, you probably wouldn't have anything due to the size. Now, the Shawtown Alumni Association owns land behind the facility, and they have a multi-purpose football field out there. And I know that they have plans for a future community center at their community building at that site. There will be athletic facilities there that they'll run.
I was going to ask if there's any land around there that might become available for future development. I think that's something, of course, I know you've got a master plan,
Sure.
But I think that's something we need to really look at strongly, is providing recreational opportunities for the young people, because if we can keep them on a ball field, they're not on the street. Mm-hmm. And, they don't get in trouble at second base. They get in trouble out on the sidewalk and in the street. So, just my thoughts. Any other comments, questions about this request? With the consent of the board, we will add this to the consent agenda for approval. Madam Clerk, we'll take care of that. Thank you, Mr. Davis. All right, let's see, Mr. Sykes.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
This item is a split jurisdiction request with the City of Dunn and a landowner. The landowner's RP Wellens. They have a piece of property that is over near Latham Lane and Red Hill Church Road in Dunn. This parcel, as you can see on the map up here, splits the ETJ of Dunn and Harnett County. The landowners have requested that jurisdiction be assigned to Dunn. Their plan is to develop a PUD and to eventually annex into the City of Dunn. And so the Dunn has already passed a resolution to assign jurisdiction to the city. Under 160D-203, it would require us to also adopt a resolution. We did a couple of these last year with some other properties. The county agrees that the jurisdiction should go to the City of Dunn. It makes sense with their planning over there. So unless there's any questions, I'm happy to answer those. Otherwise, we can put this on the agenda for next week.
Does this require a public hearing?
It does not.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Is this agreeable to, this resolution agreeable to the board? If it's agreeable to the board, we'll put it on the consent agenda for approval.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Let's see. Mr. Smith? Harnett County Emergency Services request to apply for a North Carolina Emergency Management Capacity Building Competitive Grant. That's a mouthful.
It is. It's a
You
new
got anything
state.
else you want to add to that?
This one is a new state emergency management grant that became available this year. Basically, what they've done is they've set some funding priorities for this for local emergency management agencies to build on their current capabilities for response and recovery. They've laid out some of those priorities. We've got 2 projects that we're going to request if the board approves this grant. Again, this is a non-county match. It's a reimbursable grant through the state. Our first project is to replace and upgrade the EOC operations audiovisual equipment and the computer systems that are there. They're 12, 13 years old. We're patching them to keep them together. They don't make parts for it anymore. That project, we've got a few quotes on it, and what we're looking at is about $89,000 for that project. That will take care of our emergency operations center, the 2 breakout room conference rooms that we have, and our EMS classroom. That'll connect all of those rooms with that equipment. So no matter what room you're in during a big operation, you're seeing what's going on in the EOC and able to run and kind of increase those capabilities more than we've got right now. This particular project hits their number 1 priority, and we think that would have a pretty good chance of going through. The second project is to purchase 2 rapid deployment tents. And basically what these are is they're decon tents. They're an inflatable type tent, goes up in a matter of minutes. It can be used for decon. It can be used for out on field operations for searches, things like that. It'll have heat, air, generator systems, lights, and it'll also have the whole decon setup too, so we could use that for decon or a medical type situation, mass casualty of some type. The project total for that's about $252. What we're looking to ask the state, just so that we've got a buffer for the price increases, because we don't know when these grants are going to be awarded, and right now we're going through some serious price increases in everything that we're purchasing right now. So we're going to request $275,000 to cover both of those projects, so that we ensure that we have the amount of funds that we'll need to finish those up. Any questions?
This is a non-matching grant.
Non-matching, yeah.
Notice that the maximum you can request is $400,000. Is
Yes.
that correct?
Yeah.
You can't spend $400,000?
Well,
I mean,
we've
hey,
got
look,
some,
we may
yeah.
not get it, but I guarantee
Yeah.
you, if we don't ask for it, we won't.
We've looked at some of the projects, and we've got some other grants in the works right now too to take care of some of our capability issues. But we could probably come up with something else, I'm quite sure.
Hey,
My team will spend somebody else's money, I'll promise you that.
well, I mean, why we limit ourselves to 275,000 when there's
Yeah.
400,000 available?
Yeah, we're really good about bringing the grants in and making sure we bring those federal dollars back to Harnett.
I know it's taxpayer dollars and we're paying for it, but
Yeah, we're bringing it back, so.
we'll still have to pay for it,
Yeah.
but one way or the other, but, you know,
A one-time deal.
Yeah, yeah.
no time like the present time. Any questions or comments from any of the other commissioners? Is everyone in agreement with, if you find out between now and Monday that you might need to upgrade that, I think we can,
We'll make adjustments.
would anyone object to him upgrading the amount?
But not,
We've got some
certainly,
projects. we could put
if
in.
there's some other projects that would fit
Yes.
within whatever the guidelines are on the grant, certainly not.
Yeah,
We've got projects we could touch.
okay.
Okay.
All right, well, we'll put that on the consent agenda for approval on Monday's meeting.
All right,
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
thank you.
All right, Mr. Appel, I think you're up next. Talk about the bylaws revisions for the Harnett County Commission for Women and Youth.
Yes, this is an amendment to the membership section. I know there's been an issue with filling all the seats because currently it's 15, and also ensuring that there's equal representation from all the districts. And so what's before you is an amendment to fix those couple issues. So first change is to take it from 15 individuals to 10, and then to again ensure that there's equal representation from all the districts across this county. It would be that 2 of the members would be appointed from each of the 5 districts to get to your 10. Now, membership just requires it to be a citizen of the county or they work in the county. So therefore, if the person works in the county but not a citizen, then they would be eligible for the district in which they work. And that's how that would work. So I made the amendment to make that clear. And then if a vacancy does exist and commissioners can't get a qualified individual to fill one of those district seats, then it becomes an at-large appointment. Those are changes before you. If there's any questions, happy to answer those.
And now this is just for the board of this committee, is that correct?
For this committee.
Anybody's free to attend the meetings
Correct.
and be on subcommittees.
So these meetings are always open. All
Yeah.
of our meetings of any of our appointed boards, they're always open meetings. Anyone can come to them. This is just change of membership.
This is just an attempt to get a manageable size board.
Correct. Because I think it's my understanding there has been an issue with filling all 15 seats and then ensuring there's, I think we have a number of our members from one area of the county, so it's just trying to ensure more involvement throughout the county.
Yes, ma'am.
I agree with what you have outlined here, that you will have 10 people to serve on the board. And I agree with the fact that they are allowed to have associate members to the organization. Simply because you need more than 10 people to carry out what's needed in this county for these women to, kind of fill in the need there.
Right.
So you have my vote on that. I
Yes,
think
ma'am.
it was very much needed. And I'm very pleased that you all see the fit to do this.
Yes, ma'am.
Any further comments or questions about these changes? Everybody in agreement with these changes? Madam Clerk, will you put this on the consent agenda for Monday?
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Okay, next item is discussion of property by a third party out on Lawrence Road and Broadway. Mr. Snow?
Commissioners, at your last work session, I brought to your attention an offer for county-owned property made by the Harrington brothers, where they proposed to purchase a 13-acre tract on Lawrence Road near Broadway for a price of $40,000. The old tax value on this property property was $39,520, which was in line with that offer. But the 2021 reval jacked the property price or value up to $78,800. Once that was brought to the attention of the board, if I remember correctly, Commissioner Nickel asked that we delay any decision on this request and give the staff time to obtain from the tax administrator some comparables that you could use in making your decision on this proposed offer, and if you wanted to make any type of counteroffer. So I passed out to you, and it's in your packet also, you asked for 3 comparables. Mr. Tyson supplied 5. You'll see those listed there on your data with the GIS property cards or property information sheets on each one. Based on what Bill Tyson put together, he basically stated that item number 1, which is the D&M Matthews Lane property, is what he would call an outlier, and that that property obviously showed a per acre price, which would be somewhat an exception and out of the spectrum. So his point was he listed that there as a comparable, but he would really kind of throw that out as an outlier and then consider the other 4. And when you do that, in Bill Tyson's estimation, that supports the values that they have placed on the reval on this particular property, based on his opinion. So if you've got any questions in reference to any particular properties, I think in your packet, again, you had the GIS cards, and of course, the clerk can pull those up also, because I think they were included in your packet. So the main question in studying these would be, now that you've got those comparables to review, what would your response be to the Harrington brothers, either to again, respectfully deny their request as far as the $40,000 offer which stands on the table now? And if so, if you today and advised him of this information, forwarded to him the comparable information that you've got in front of you, and ask him if they, based on that information, if he or his brothers want to up the ante, so to speak, and he basically was holding his cards and just said, well, I'll wait and see what the commissioners say. So that's where we stand right now as far as any proposed negotiations.
What's the thoughts of the board?
Well, I personally think that we should decline their offer, respectfully decline their offer. There really isn't a reason for negotiation at this point, and if we do, I think we're pretty far off. They would like to come back at us at a future time with another offer. I think that would be acceptable.
Yeah, I support Mr. position on that. Thank you.
I agree.
Ms. McCoy? Okay, that's the consensus of the board, is to go decline their offer and ask them if they'd like to give it another try.
Okay. Other than that, any previews? I mean, I'm just asking because I anticipate from their perspective is, well, what did they say about the values? Are they honoring their own reval values? Are they honoring their comps? Are they looking for something close to that figure, or what? I mean,
Yeah, from what I'm seeing, the reval value is what, $78,000?
yes, sir.
Okay.
78.8.
I mean, that puts it at $6,200 per acre. I mean, your nearest comp, and I'm assuming these are the years, the 20 and 21s. So August of 21 and November of 21 are the nearest comparables that we have. Granted that you have one that's considerably larger tract. I mean, I think you're looking at upwards of $8,000 or so per acre. I mean, that's just me with any sort of real estate knowledge, just looking at these comps. And I mean, that's your newest one at $13,000 an acre for something half the size. So I mean, I'm thinking anywhere between mid 8.5 to 10.5 per acre. I know that's out there in the public now for them to listen to, but I mean, if they would sit here and look at this and look at other comparables in the area, they might be able to come at us with something a little bit better than a prior tax value, which has no purpose in real estate market value at all.
Do we know, or do we have any idea what the 2022 reevaluation value is going to be?
Yeah, that's the
It's the
value that you have there, the 78.8 is the 2021 reval for this year.
I'm talking about.
Forthcoming for 2022.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's the right one.
I think it's the desire of the board to reject this offer and to, if they ask for guidance, I think, you know, you can tell them what the feeling of the board is.
I will.
You know, we're not actively pursuing them to sell it to them, so I mean, it's up to, you know, their negotiations at this
Exactly.
point in time. So.
Exactly. Thank you very much. I'll convey those feelings and we'll see what happens.
Thank you, Mr. Snow. Appreciate that. All right, Mr. Haney.
Good morning.
Morning.
Melissa, can you scroll down to the map? A few pages down. I'm here this morning to provide an update on the status of the former Benhaven School campus and to request the board's direction regarding one item. I want to start by providing some background, a little bit lower, the color map. One more. There you go. Thank you. As you know, the county acquired the former Benhaven School campus from the Harnett County Board of Education in October of 2019. The campus at the time included 5 buildings, which you can see on the screen. The 2-story classroom building, which is at the top of that image, the cafeteria building with classrooms, which is in the center, highlighted in red, the gymnasium building with classrooms, which is the white-roofed building to the south of the 2-story building, the former media center, which is the blue shaded building on the far top right, and then the former pre-K building at the bottom left. Upon acquiring the property, the county's first priority was to condition and preserve the space to prevent further deterioration and to allow time to assemble funding required for renovation. The goal has been to learn from the situations experienced at the former Shawtown and Boone Trail schools and to not let the campus fall into disrepair to make revitalization possible and more affordable. We started planning for the future of the campus. We met with the community and heard loud and clear that they wanted more county services in that portion of the county. We view this campus as an opportunity to provide those services. Harnett County Schools has expressed an interest in using the gymnasium and the attached classrooms for an early college location in western Harnett County. Chris Johnson, our capital projects construction manager, has coordinated the renovation of the space to bring it to where it needs to be for the school system to move forward with that. We're currently working with them for their required renovations to allow that to happen this fall. We realized early on that for that use and others, we would need additional parking for future use. So we demolished the original cafeteria and classroom building. We've engaged the Timmons Group to design a new parking lot that incorporates the area where the cafeteria was. Design has been completed and bidding documents are actually being posted today to solicit bids for the work. We anticipate this project being completed in July of this year in time for the early college to open in August. We will know more when the bids come in, but our anticipated cost for the project was just over $1.2 million for the base bid, and with the alternates added in, approximately $1.55 million. Again, once we get the bids in, we'll know how to proceed with that. We were and are able to accomplish everything that I've described already using remaining GeoBond premium from the construction of the new Benhaven School. When the school was built, the project also included the renovation of the former Benhaven campus, and those bonds were sold at a premium, so there was additional funding there for this purpose. This allowed us to use GeoBond proceeds, or we are allowed to use GeoBond proceeds on anything related to the school purpose. For instance, what's required to house an early college on this site. So that left us with the remaining 3 buildings on the campus, which must be funded out of the general fund. We went ahead early on and replaced the roof on the 2-story building and repaired the boiler to allow the space to be conditioned. There has been some infiltration through the original windows, and Chris Johnson believes that this needs to be done as soon as possible to avoid further deterioration in the building. The next steps will be to engage an architect to design the renovation and identify funding for that renovation, which we currently estimate at more than $2 million. We replaced the roof of the former media center in January and have also identified funds to renovate the space by removing the old bookshelves and fixtures, replacing the flooring and painting. We believe this building, the former media center, provides the best and most immediate opportunity to provide county services on this site, since the two-story building has a substantial cost and a longer timeline for renovation. We're looking at a community center and library similar to what we have at Boone Trail, but on a larger scale. We have a meeting internally this week to discuss additional needs from departments that have identified a desire to establish satellite services on this campus as well. Those include health, DSS, and veterans. And we hope to finalize the scope of the renovation after that meeting. Our desire is for the renovation to be completed simultaneously with the completion of the parking lot. Parks and Recreation is also working on the outdoor amenities to provide recreational opportunities on site as well at that point. Are there any questions on anything that I've discussed up to this point?
Are we, is Chuck currently using those fields out there for recreation purposes?
I believe so.
Okay.
I'm not 100% certain about that. I know that is the plan at least.
Right, I was thinking so too, and if not, that's fine, but if so, that's good, because we are getting some use out of it, even though we've got a lot of work to do out there.
Yes, we have had to demolish the fencing for the ball fields and reconstruct that. A portion of one of the ball fields, there were two out there, a portion of one of them is actually on the neighboring property. So we're taking that into account as we move forward. But there will be, I believe, the renovations will include realigning the ball fields, adding playground equipment, and I think a picnic shelter.
Very good, thank you.
How much land do we own out there?
That's a good question. I think one of the maps may tell that. Looks like approximately 17 to 18 acres.
And how much of it are we using currently?
The entire acreage is the school site. So
No, I understand it's a school site, but how much of it has a building on it? What's the acreage that has the buildings and the ball fields and that kind of thing?
Melissa, can you scroll up to the white map next to it?
That one.
So on that, yes, the northern portion, kind of where you see the cutoff on the left side, the class or the buildings are all there in north. The ball fields are on the southern cutout.
I know you said you have a meeting this week with the department heads.
Yes.
I'll throw something out. At some point in the not too distant future, we're going to have to build an animal shelter.
Correct.
We already own the land. It's better than having to go buy land to put an animal shelter. Just
Yeah.
something that we might consider.
What I'll let you know is that right now, this Friday, I will be taking
Former preschool building in that lot, because I'm assuming that lot is actually separate. Isn't that correct?
That is the next half of this presentation, but yes, it is about to be. Okay. So that leaves the former pre-K building that you just alluded to. I've provided a memo in your packet along with some supporting documentation, but want to go over that with you at a high level. This building is located away from the other 3 remaining buildings on the campus beside Benhaven School Road. There is a driveway that comes in off of Benhaven School Road and passes in front of that building. The county engaged Ellington Design Group in 2019, prior to acquiring the property, but knowing that we were going to perform a code evaluation report that provided a cost estimate for the, quote, minimum renovation required to occupy the buildings. The quote that came in for the pre-K building was $364,260. And keep in mind that was an estimate from 2019. So it has almost certainly gone up since then. Staff has explored possible options for the building, but have not been able to identify a viable use that we believe warrants the cost of that renovation. Alternative options to renovating would be to demolish the property. Obviously, there is a cost there, but that is considerably less. To renovate the property and lease it, we would still have to fund the renovation and would need to find a suitable tenant on the property. Another option would be to donate it. We have been approached, or you have been approached, by Veteran Harbor last July, requesting that the board donate the property to allow them to renovate the space and provide temporary housing for homeless veterans on that site. There have been some concerns raised by Harnett County Schools and some of the county departments that would have programming out there that may not be a compatible use co-located on the site. Finally, we could sell the property. We have received 2 inquiries regarding the sale of that property, though no formal offers have been received. One of those inquiries was actually from a child care facility, which would be permitted by right on that property. That would generate revenue and could be put back into the property. The Timmons Group has submitted a preliminary plat for review by Development Services that would recombine the property. It's currently 8 separate parcels. So it would recombine the property and split out the pre-K building, which would allow for it to be disposed of by the county. I've checked with Development Services, and the property is currently zoned RA20R, meaning that the following uses, not an exclusive list, would be permitted without approval from the board. Those include residential structures, churches, family care centers, schools, parks, farms, nurseries, fire, police, or EMS facilities, and community centers. There is also a valid special use permit for a daycare facility at this site. Should the board desire to sell or donate the property, you could place restrictions on the property in order to protect the county's interests. The risk there would be that any restrictions would likely make the property less desirable from someone seeking to acquire it. I do want to mention that whoever acquires the pre-K building, if that is the route that you wish to take, will be required to install a separate septic tank for the property. And with that, I'm available for any questions you have or any direction related to the disposal of the pre-K building property on this site.
Have you spoke recently with Veterans Harbor?
I have not. I have.
I think they've acquired other property and are about to have a groundbreaking or a ribbon cutting or something. So I don't think they're interested in the site anymore.
Okay.
I spoke with them last week. They were still, yeah. I mean, if it became available or an option, I mean, I think they would still continue to pursue that. However, since things have kind of been stagnant and they've moved, shifted their focus elsewhere.
I have a question, Brian. A lot of these old buildings, these old schools that we have here in Harnett County has been renovated into community property to serve the citizens of this county. And I want to ask you about that school and that particular building. Is there any historical sites out there on that land where that school is at?
So the property, I believe the property itself is on the study list for the National Register of Historic Places, but it's not on the actual register at this time. So to do that, I've been in touch with Kathleen Turner with the Preservation North Carolina as we look at the 2-story building in particular and the potential to have that added and identify grant funding that may help with that renovation. And we would have to apply for inclusion on the register. But it is on the study list.
But that is the reason I'm asking, because there are funds out there for these types of buildings right now. And I think it would be in the county's best interest to pursue those kind of funds. And I'm understanding, because I've been working on another project now, that there's more of those funds out there now than it's ever been simply because of the COVID, what has happened to this whole country with COVID and everything. So I'm just saying you might need to look into it. I don't know if it's going to be fruitful for you or not, but that's just a suggestion for me.
Yes, ma'am. And we are exploring that avenue. I know that the two-story building, I'm not sure about the others. We're working to schedule a site visit with Preservation NC, but I know that that building was constructed, I think, in 1936. So that's the oldest remaining building on the campus.
Thank you.
I have a couple concerns just concerning the sale of this property, or the idea of selling it. What would we do for another ingress and egress? Because that would limit us to only one if we got rid of that property.
We would not get rid of the roadway off of Benhaven School Road. That would continue to be part of the main property and be able to be used for ingress and egress, but there would be kind of a turnoff going to the pre-K building.
And then I kind of think until we decide what exactly is going to go out there in the overall plan, I don't think we should be getting rid of or selling that piece until, that's prime real estate right there. So if, in order to lose that or get that back in the future, if there's a need for it, once we actually get to that point, if it doesn't fall in line with any of our plans, I think then we can bring up the topic of getting rid of it or selling it. But until then, it's a part of that property and in the description of that property, so I'd like that to maintain as long as it can. So, but with that being said, I don't want it to also keep taking forever, because this has been on the plans for like 3 years and we're still sitting here discussing it. So, again.
Sir.
So if I understand you right, until you're looking for staff to determine, or the board to determine what.
Everything, you're going to come up with a new property description. So having that as its own separate lot would be, totally fine. That way we can play with that and not actually have that option down the line if we need to. Yeah.
No, I think, we certainly don't have an immediate need to dispose of that property. If the board would like for us to kind of look at the full plan for the property and then determine, where that leaves that building, we certainly can do that.
I think the biggest thing for me was we didn't want to, if you were comfortable with disposing of the property, that there may be somebody that would have an interest and we would not be able to take advantage of an interested party, and just continuing to have it there and maintaining it and so forth. If we could give it off to sell it off to someone else, let that be their responsibility. That helps lessen our burden. But I understand the desire to maintain ownership until complete decisions are made.
And I would agree with Commissioner Nickel. I think we, county officials and board, made a commitment to that community that we were going to try to preserve this site that has a lot of history, if you will, for our citizens in that part of the county. And I would hesitate to jump in and carve part of it out, not knowing what direction that might take. I have no problem with going ahead and subdividing that out once we survey it, but I would agree with Commissioner Nickel. I think we need to move somewhat cautiously in that type of decision at this point in our plans for that site.
Is that the consensus of the board? Yes. Ms. McCoy?
I can agree with that, and we always have to remember, you're talking about the time frame and how much time it's just taken us to get to this point. Government moves slow. So, I just want to throw that out there. Deputy government is involving the government overnight. It just takes time.
Yeah, I think the next step for us will be to really to figure out whether or not we have the capability to get this listed on the register. Because if we are, this then opens up potential for additional funding, and that also restricts how we can do the renovation. There are restrictions. Well, if you're going to accept that money, the renovation has to be done in a certain way. And so I think once we have that information as to whether we can pursue that, that will give us an opportunity to think about what type of usages might be used best for that area.
So you're clear now on
Yes.
the direction?
Yep, we'll hold on to the property. We will move forward with continuing to develop a concept for the two-story building. I think that's
And, all right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Price, you want to talk about the, or no, excuse me, Mr. Trout, you want to talk about the grant?
You bet. Well, this is exciting. The Board of Education has made a decision to make an application to this grant fund. And so we would be a partner with that. It would make us have a commitment of $25 million in order to pursue a $40 million grant. This is a school that has been in consideration for a period of time. It would move it up from our future projects to a current project if we were able to pursue this. As we discussed at the retreat, our current financial position allows us to be able to sell the $25 million in bond that would be the matching funds for this application. We're excited. From what I understand, the school feels confident. They have a very good shot at receiving this grant. And so there would be a great opportunity for us to spring forward with regards to that particular school and allow us to shift some students around based on the information that was provided by the school in the application. I think it provides a great opportunity to relieve some congestion and overpopulation in other schools, and the location very much allows that to occur. So I think it's a very quality application that I think has a good shot, but it does require us to make a commitment. And so that's why we bring it before you for discussion now, and then action needs to occur at the next meeting in order to make it in time for the grant application submission.
Well, I think this is a good opportunity, like you said. Anytime we can build a new school and have over 50% of the cost in form of grant, I think we need to take a hard look at that, consider that.
And I agree. I think this is one of those opportunities that we would not have envisioned a couple of years ago coming along. And I think certainly makes sense to me to at least apply, see if this comes through. If it does, count our blessings for that help that we would not have envisioned not long ago.
Ms. McCoy?
I agree, simply because we need a school. We have a lot of rapid growth in this county, and the rapid growth is moving towards that area. But I want to, is there a match for us?
The 25 million is
25 million is a match. Well, I still agree, simply because we need the school. When there ain't no other way. At least we're getting this grant that's going to help us offset the cost of the school. And of course, Kimberly says we in good condition, but we need to save every dollar we can. So I agree.
So, Mr. Trout, I was trying to read through this document. Does it require any formal board action? Because technically, if this is approved, it would require the board to issue the $25 million in debt, which we showed the other day that we have the capacity to repay that. I'm trying to make sure that there's nothing formal that we need to adopt other than just signing this.
I do not believe, other than us approving to submit the grant, because I believe the chair has to sign the documentation as well. And so we want to make sure that approval of the board is conducted in order to authorize the chair to make the signature on the application. That's why we're seeking that approval at the next meeting.
Okay.
Now, if we acquire this debt, we have to have that approved by LGC?
Yes, we would have to, because I'm looking at the anticipated construction. I was trying to find where, when, if this application's approved, if these funds are approved, what date it would be, because then that's when we would work with Davenport, our financial advisors, on backing up to anticipated date of construction, and then when we would, and from that, we would put into place the timing of the documents that you would need to approve when we would go out to do the bids to get the funding, because it would be installment. I'm just trying to make sure we're prepared to get everything in line.
I'm trying to find the spot in the application, but I believe it states that the bid on the project would be in 23, and construction would be done in 25. So we would have time to pull together the necessary steps to issue the bonds.
I just found that page. Award announcements anticipated April the 12th. So that should give us plenty of time to plan and get everything in place.
Good.
Okay, that was going to be my question. Is when do we think we'll know about the 40 million? So if I hear correctly, the consensus of the board is that we authorize this and move forward with this application? No, put that on the consent agenda. No need to have any, unless anybody's got some more questions about it. All right, good, thank you. All right, now, Mr. Price.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the grant at the airport.
All right, thank you, sir. I come bearing good news as well. This is the last phase of the $6 million appropriated to the Harnett County Regional Jetport through the State Capital and Infrastructure Fund grant agreement. I appreciate everybody's hard work on that. To moving forward, these are for capital projects at Harnett Regional Jetport. It is in the total of $6 million that will be dispersed in two separate allocations to the county. The first being very near future, with your agreement to move forward, the first $3 million will come into our funds, and then around June 30th, the second. So we have everything in order. I've already sent them the forms that they need from the Kimberly and Alan have given us about the no overdue tax and the conflict of interest and what's called an AB 106 form, Department of Aviation. That is already in place. So, Mr. Chairman, this is the last step as far as your approval and your signature to get those funds. However, with state or federal funds, you've got guidelines, rules, and regulations. There are 14 pages that Chris and Thomas and I have gone over in detail. So I encourage you to kind of peruse through that and make sure that everything is in order. We don't see an issue, but it's just making you aware. So I guess I'm just asking here for your permission to move forward and your approval and signature so we can get that done on March 7th.
Okay. Any comments from the board? All right.
Thank you, sir.
Madam Clerk, would you put that on the consent agenda for Monday?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. All right. The next item is a discussion of the Magnolia Building in Dunn. We have, come on up, Mr. Snow. We have been approached about giving ownership of that building to the city of Dunn. And Mr. Trout, Mr. Snow, Commissioner Johnson, and myself met with Mayor Elmore and Mr. Newshafer, Reed Williams, the head of the Economic Development Alliance. We met with Mayor Parker was in the room, a couple of other people, and we discussed the need or Dunn's need for this building and how we thought we might be able to do this conveyance of property. I asked Mr. Snow to work with the Dunn City Attorney and the Alliance Attorney, Tillman Pope, to work out the details. And so, Mr. Snow, if you want to bring us up to date.
Glad to, Mr. Chairman. In doing so, for the benefit of the audience and the other commissioners that might not be totally up to date on this particular situation, let me just give you a brief history from my perspective. Back in August the 14th of 1987, the Harnett County Board of Education decommissioned the Magnolia Avenue School property in Dunn, and at that point decided they wanted to be shed of it, so they conveyed the property to Harnett County in a deed back in '87. The property that was conveyed is a 300 by 300 foot lot, approximately 2 acres, which encompasses an entire city block in the city of Dunn at the corner of Canary Street and Magnolia Avenue. The very next year, the Dunn Committee of 200, which is a nonprofit 501c3 corporation, which was later renamed the Dunn Committee of 100, leased this property from the county for 0 rent on the following conditions. Number one, that the property be used for the purposes of maintaining a small business incubator facility as described in the 1983 Incubator Feasibility Program by the North Carolina General Assembly. 2, that the tenant would be responsible for repair and maintenance at the facility and pay utilities. Number 3, that the landlord, being the county, would insure the facility under its master hazard insurance policy for all of its buildings. And then the tenant would reimburse the county for those charges of premiums which are transmitted to this particular property. Since that time, the Dunn Committee of 100 has leased the property under those various terms. The lease has been technically not officially extended, but it's just been reoccurring. So that's the status quo out there right now. They did establish the Triangle Enterprise Center, have a long history of the incubator business program out there, and it still exists today. Bring you forward to, I will say, during those past years, previous, not this board, but previous boards, and I've been with these boards since the early 90s, and know about it before that, in that I was with other partners, lawyer-wise, that represented the county. During that period of time, the county commissioners, various boards, have gone to the Dunn Committee of 100 and have gone to the city of Dunn and practically begged them to take this property off the county shoulders. As an example of today, we continue to have old buildings, and the question is, what do you do with them? Do you raise them, tear them down, do you use them, renovate them? And old buildings are old buildings. They can be very hard to maintain cost-wise. Every board that would come into vein would make this request of either the Dunn Committee of 100 or the City of Dunn, and both those entities have always been reluctant to take the property due to the uncertainty of high maintenance cost and that type thing. That brings us forward to now, or at least last year, last April of 2021, after negotiations for some period of time, the City of Dunn and the town of Four Oaks in Johnston County decided to create an Interstate 95, Interstate 40 Crossroad of America Economic Development Alliance, Inc. That's a long name, and I'll just call it the Alliance from here on out. They created that particular nonprofit corporation, which is 501c3 status, and the purpose of that corporation was to recruit industries and promote economic development within the Alliance corridor, which they defined as a corridor along Interstate 95 extending from the City of Dunn area all the way up to the town of Four Oaks area. In addition to that, they have already pledged monies and obtained grants for this particular corporation. Articles have been filed, bylaws have been entered, an economic development director has been hired for that body, and they are in the midst right now of going forward to try to get additional grant funds to fund their purpose and their operations. In August of last year, they entered into a memorandum of understanding, and as a part of that, the city of Dunn pledged to provide to the Alliance a headquarters facility, which is where their headquarters would be located and where their corporate staff would be located for their operation purposes. And that's where our building comes in as far as the Magnolias Avenue school, old school property. Both the city and the Alliance had determined that this would be an excellent and suitable site for their purposes as far as the headquarters for the Alliance. They have, obviously, as Chairman Weatherspoon has just discussed, we met with them last week, representatives of Four Oaks and the Alliance and the City of Dunn, and discussed this for general discussion of the board as to what directives you want to give the county legal staff and how we work with the City of Dunn and Alliance legal staff in putting together a package on this. And the particular directives I've already out at this time. Number two, if you do, are you interested in it being a gift or no gift situation? Are you wanting actual consideration? And I would add that if you did a gift situation, that's perfectly feasible under North Carolina law. As you're well aware, under North Carolina General Statute 160A-274, a county can give property to another unit of local government, which obviously the City of Dunn will qualify in that regard for no consideration if that's your desire. And the process is completely up to your discretion. It's not mandated in any way as far as the process under the general statutes in that situation. If you decided you did not want to convey the property for a gift situation that you wanted consideration, then the key question would be, what kind of base price are you looking for? Do you want full fair market value? Do you want a discount on that fair market value? Do you want to give them a wheel of the deal, but go ahead and keep some consideration there? That'd be the key question. Key information as far as answering that directive is the current tax value on this particular property, as you can see on your handout there, is $1,524,300. Key question is, well, what did the reval show? The 2021 reval on this property shows $1,106,300, which is a decrease of $418,000, which is surprising, but again, that shows how the age of this building, being built in 1917, and the condition of the building has continued to deteriorate as far as the value. So that's the reval figures. And then the other question is, further than that, is if you do want to sell it for consideration, then what conditions do you want to place, if any, on the conveyance? So these are all wide open questions that we're looking for just for general discussion.
Do you mind talking about the discussion we had about if Dunn were to sell this building to a third party, or if it was damaged due to fire or some other catastrophic event?
Discussions were had at the meeting last week, again, just open discussions. And Chairman Witherspoon at that point, you know, they were, it was a situation where they were there to tell us what a great job they've done on this property in the years, and they've done a good job with it. But at the same time, in touting that, they wanted concessions from the county as far as hopefully conveying it to them for no consideration, no monetary consideration. Chairman Witherspoon, obviously not speaking for the board, he was just speaking on his behalf as chairman of the board, just knowing that he had had some individual discussions with various members of the board, but not everybody. In effect, just said, well, we're okay with conveying it out maybe for no consideration, but we want protections because we don't want anybody, if there's going to be a windfall at the end of the process for either the Alliance or for the City of Dunn, wherever this property might go, we want to share in that windfall. And so his point was, if we conveyed it, for example, to the City of Dunn for no consideration, he would want some conditions or some strings, basically, in one case saying if they should sell the property down the road over a base price, if you will, for a profit, then we want to ensure that the county got that base price back or a portion of it. The other consideration, that hypothetical, was what if you convey it to the city of Dunn, it's properly insured, and then Hurricane Fran or something comes in and destroys the building, and it's leveled by a tornado or some other hazard like that, fire or something like that. If the insurance pays off and you don't put it back into the reconstruction of a building, then we want to get our monies back in a situation like that. So there were various discussions in that vein. And to do those protections, there's various ways you can skin the cat, and that's what Tillman Pope, who represents the Alliance and the City of Dunn, and I have been discussing this week. Well, I won't get into all the weeds, basically, but I mean, we discussed every way that you can think of to try to protect both parties in that instance. And from my perspective, the best way you could do it, if they would consent to it, would be just say, look, you know, we've arrived at a base price. If the property's worth $1 million, we'll sell it to you, this is purely hypothetical, for $500,000, $500,000. So we'll convey the property to you, the City of Dunn, not to the Alliance, but to the City of Dunn, which is obviously in our county and is part of our county, to you for $500,000. We'll deed it to you by special warranty deed. We'll take back a note for $500,000, and we'll secure that note with a purchase money deed of trust on the property. And then the conditions on the note will say, for example, let's say it's a 15-year term, 0% interest. So it's $500,000 payable at the maturity date of the term. What that does is basically you just say, okay, the note is payable under one of these conditions: when the note matures in 15 years, or if the Dunn should transfer this property to any other entity, person or entity other than the Alliance, then in that situation it becomes due and payable. The other aspect that he was talking about was if you have a hazardous situation occur where the place is wiped out, Lord forbid, but if that happened, if you got the deed and deed of trust, you're going to be first mortgagee on that policy anyway. So if they pay off on the policy, they're going to have to deal with the county just like they would with the bank. So you're protected in that regard. So my point to Tillman, which I was just thinking about this last night, I hadn't discussed it with him, would be just be simple, secure it in that way. It comes up to y'all to think of what amount would you want to make the note for. And that way you're protected at least for the 15 years. If the Alliance flies, and if it's successful and does a great job, then you can always look at it, you or a future board can look at it down the road. You can always forgive the note if you want to. But it's there for that protection where you still have that leverage. That's just one hypothetical of how you can handle it. But there's various other ways you can skin the cat.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Snow.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Trout, you got any comments you'd like to make?
Well, I think that for us, you know, we have had a purpose now for a while for the city of Dunn to utilize this building. And so for us, if there is an opportunity to continue that arrangement, it works, I think, better financially for us. We don't, as we've looked at the Benhaven School and we have some uses there, at this point, we don't see a particular use for the Magnolia School in our system. And so for us, that relieves us from liability in the future for maintenance for this building and puts it on those that are utilizing the building and gives them the opportunity to have a path to ownership. But it also protects our interests. There is a value that's there that the city, or excuse me, the county at one point had utilized, had paid for this building at one time, and now there's still a value there when we received ownership back. And so I think that is important. We're protecting that interest, but also finding a pathway forward for the city and their alliance to be able to do what are good and encouraging things for our county to be able to train workforce and continue to provide a place for those organizations that are trying to do good economic development in our county to be able to function as such.
I agree with you. Thanks, sir. And that being said, I know we were told that Central Carolina Community College wants to expand their presence in the building. They're going to be doing some type of
Technology
workforce.
training, I think. Was what
Yeah,
they called it.
workforce development for
Computer training.
Computer
that
training,
allows
yeah.
individuals to be able
Right.
to meet the demands of some organizations that now use computers in order to operate their different manufacturing
Right.
facility.
we don't have to make a decision today. We do need to give our attorney some direction. Do we want to pursue the path that we're on, or do we want to change direction, or what's the wish of the board?
Do I understand that we have not reached a final point in our discussions or discussions between you and Mr. Pope?
No final point has been reached.
Okay.
We're just.
So we're
just kinda
still
starting.
in negotiations or
I think-
beginning?
I think as far as the meeting and the other members that were there last week, from my perspective, I think from the meeting, they were relieved, they being the Alliance and the City of Dunn, that the board would consider conveying the property as far as any conditions or whatever, that was all still up in the air.
Very good. Well, based on that information, then I would certainly be in favor of continuing those discussions in the direction that Mr. Snow outlined for us.
And when you
Or
say
you
that, are
gotta-
you saying, the first thing I would ask, are we talking about a gift or a non-gift?
Well, my understanding would be, as you laid out the example, that yes, we have a number, 15-year, whatever comes to that, but a term, a number, and then the opportunity at the end for whomever's sitting on the board, if,
Okay.
things have gone well, they can always forgive that, but yet we're covered in that interim should any natural disaster, any sale or anything else occur.
Have you discussed that with Tillman?
No. Well,
Okay.
generally, but not as specific as I was today.
I mean, but tentatively, is he pretty agreeable to that so far?
It's hard to tell, and the reason I say that is obviously, as you heard last week, time is somewhat of the essence with them, because with the legislature session coming up, they were wanting to submit applications like every other local government's doing for grants and earmark money and that type thing. And what they were thinking, what their thoughts were to us last week, was that, when the question came up, well, should we convey it to the City of Dunn or to the county, or to the Alliance, excuse me? Their point was, well, we feel like with the Alliance, as far as applications for earmarks or whatever, we would be in a better situation at the legislature, because more representative districts are involved, i.e. Johnston County, 4X area, and Harnett County, the Dunn area. So they felt like those type of applications should be coming from the Alliance as opposed to the City of Dunn, especially since the City of Dunn just got $30 million for their sewer situation. So, they just got that big hit right there, so they felt like the Alliance would have a better chance. From y'all's perspective, it was, well, the Alliance is partly Johnston County. We're not wild about donating property to Johnston County or anything affiliated with Johnston County. We want to work with Dunn. So the key was, we'll convey it to Dunn, and then Dunn can convey it to them, but they felt like they needed to get the property either promised in that direction or actually deeded in that direction before they would be taken seriously by these legislators, which would be considering their earmark request. And I know you've had your ear to the grindstone, Chairman, as far as our representatives there, so you might know more on those comments than I do. I just gleaned that from the meeting last week.
I've not heard anything from any of our legislative delegation. I did make the point, Commissioner Johnson and Mr. Trout can vouch for this. I did make the point that we in no way do we, the Harnett County Board of Commissioners, want to convey this property to the Crossroads America Alliance, which is made up of the in Johnston County and the city of Dunn in Harnett County. What we stated was, we will convey this property to city of Dunn. And if they want to convey it to the Alliance, then I'm gonna let the county, but he seemed to be good with that, so. I would like to see us, pursue this with, Mr. Pope and see if we can't come to some kind of an agreement. By the way, when we laid out a proposal, last week, Dunn was, when we walked in, they thought that their only option was to buy the building from us at some reduced rate, based on the appraisal. And we kept talking, and they actually had RFQs laying in the room for additional property to build their own building, which they really didn't want to do. And after the conversation and the proposal of working some kind of a situation where we convey the property, but if they sell it or it's destroyed, we get the fair or the present value of that building. They were agreeable with that. They liked that idea. So this is what Mr. Snow's talked about today as a result of that meeting and some of his conversations, and possibly another proposal to City of Dunn.
In that vein, Mr. Chairman, I guess the only other point I'm looking for from you today, hopefully, is if it's a non-gift situation, if you want to sell it for monetary consideration, as far as that present value or base price that you're looking for, what ballpark are you looking for? Full value, half value, discounted value?
Well, I'm listening and I'm trying to take all of this in, but it seems to me that it's not a decision that we have to make right now, right?
No, not at all. I'm just looking for direction, so I
Yeah,
can go
well, I personally feel we need some more discussion on this before we make a decision on which direction we're going to take.
Do you want Mr. Snow to continue conversation with Mr. Pope and then come back to us?
I think that would be the right thing to do.
Okay.
I don't like making decisions based on just one report, because this is a big deal for this county. I'm not saying that I object to any of it, but I need a more clear understanding about what we're doing and what the precautions would be for Harnett County in the future. So that's all I'm saying. That's just my.
The question that Mr. Snow's asking is, if we convey it to Dunn, do we want to do it at fair market price, 50% of fair market price, or what?
And-
We're not approving anything. We're just giving him a direction.
Right, and I appreciate that, and I certainly appreciate Mr. Snow desiring some ballpark in which to begin discussions. But with that being said, and not having been a part of discussions that some of you folks have been up to this point, I just don't know that I am at a point today where I would even feel qualified to speculate on a direction. But that's just me, and so I would not be of any use to you today as far as that goes.
And again, the whole purpose of this being on the agenda today was to just bring everybody into the fold, so
Right.
that you know what's going on, obviously.
However, for those of you who have been, in those discussions, I would, be glad to hear your thoughts on that, I guess is what I'm saying.
Well, I think what we discussed last week about should Dunn sell this building to a third party, that we get compensation at that time. Or if it's just, we didn't discuss, was that going to be fair market value,
Right, okay.
50%? What we did discuss was, should they sell it at some point in the future, we would get the present value of that, whatever they sell it for. But that's, they were agreeable, or they thought that was a good idea. But again, there may be other solutions that they would agree to also.
Right.
What do you think,
Mr.
Commissioner
Nichol, I
Johnson?
know this is your arena.
Yeah,
What are
well,
your thoughts?
I was sitting quiet for
Okay.
a little bit. Well, I would agree to the way that Mr. Snow laid it out as far as conveying the property to them, but taking on a note with, it lined up that if any future sale, that we would get our portion of the current condition and market value of the property. I would agree to that. As far as what percentage, they're not making any more land. Being in the real estate business, I'm not one that just gives it away. I'm going to tell you now that we're going to make this decision now, and if it's something that's going to be put in place for the future, that once again, we don't tie our hands, and I would go for the full current value based off of its condition. I mean,
Are you, you saying you want to see a fee-based appraisal?
correct.
So does that mean that he will, you would give Mr. Snow the permission to continue to discuss the issue and bring, the report back to us,
Yes, ma'am.
and not for us to make this decision today?
No, we're not asking for any decision today
Okay.
on whether to or not to sell the building. We're just trying to give legal some direction as to the route they should pursue.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I'd like to say, my impression from the meeting the other day when we met with them was we would like to convey ownership to the city of Dunn, certainly not Johnston County. And I don't think Dunn would be in favor of having to pay a large amount of money for it, because their impression was we were going to convey it to them either for free or for a very minimum cost. If anything happened to the building, then we would be on maybe half price what the insurance would pay. I think if we come back at them and say, maybe we'll give you a note for $500,000 or $1 million, I think they may build their own building. And we go back to a useless old building that requires a lot of maintenance. We have no use for it.
Well, you're right. If we decide that we want to hold the building, we've got a building that's crumbling, basically.
It's over 100 years old now.
It's 105 years old, and it's crumbling. We got no use for it. It would cost millions to bring it up to code, because it is nowhere near current code. We can transfer this building.
I mean, so I kind of like to see the appraisal on it so we can figure out where we're sitting now with its value. And I wasn't really talking about selling it to them for, that price, but if they go and they are making a profit off of it in the future, or if there is a catastrophic event or something that happens, then yeah, I don't see why that we would just be giving that away for free. I
No.
mean, we're not asking for
discussed
something
that.
really up front.
You discussed that with them at that time.
Well, we.
If they sold it, made a profit,
Yeah.
got it stored, then we would get a certain percentage of the value.
Well, and
think
and
that's
what,
reasonable.
what we were talking about last week was, we figure out the present value of the building. Done, we're gonna sell it to a third party. We get our money for the building. We're not giving it to them. We're transferring ownership to them with deed restrictions. Okay. What I heard Mr. Snow say, we could take the fair market value, or we could take the assessed value. Till done, we will give you a 15-year note, that amount. And in 15 years, some future board can say, your note's payable, or we're gonna forgive the note, or, whatever. We're not asking them to put up money right now, if I understood correctly.
Yeah, I'd like to see the appraised value on that, and then, I mean, obviously from there, everything's negotiable. We can come up with a final number, a final percentage, or however we're gonna work it after that.
I think it would be good for us the citizens of Harnett County to know we did do an appraised value on it.
So are you asking for a fee appraisal to be done?
Yes.
Conducted? Just check to make sure what you're referencing.
I have not talked to Bill Tight. I mean, when I got the figure on the reval, with all the figures I've been seeing on revals, everything else going up, this one going down was by over $400,000 was shocking. But it tells you what assets you own, how that came to be. I mean, you can order a third-party appraisal if you want to. It's going to cost you to get it. And the question will be how accurate it's going to be, because, I mean, what kind of comps are you going to find for old school buildings out there that are over 100 years old? So,
Well, if I understand correctly from the presentations that Mr. Tyson has made, they look at comps when they're valuing a piece of property, isn't that correct?
Well, there's a lot of factors. It just doesn't go with like comparables. I mean, you could use like a gross rental income variable. I mean, something that if you rented it out, say it was investment property and rented out each of those buildings, how much revenue would that generate? And that's where you would get your valuation off of. And there's rebuild cost valuations. There's many different ways to come up with a valuation on a property.
but my point is, whether it be this, the Harrington property, or whatever, obviously the county has expended a lot of money with a lot of a good team as far as our reval. And we just done a reval. The results are going to come out, soon to our public, and then we're going to hear the hollering and the appeals and that type of thing. But the key is, you made a great investment for the reval. We're saying that here's the value of the property, and we should take that value and back it up, say that's our value because we've done the reval. I mean, it's a perfect time to use it as opposed to going out and hiring somebody else to do another appraisal, I think. That's just my point. So to me, you look at full value being the reval amount, a little bit over $1 million, $1.1 million basically. Then the question is, do you want your note to be that amount, or do you want to discount it? And that you're dealing with another municipality in the county that has done benefits with this property for the county citizens, basically. That's what it boils down to. I mean, they're not a third party that you would deal with where you want to get full value. They're one of your brothers in local government. But from the discussions I've heard today, I think I've got an ammunition to go back on the negotiation. We can come back to you. I don't want to wear you out with it.
Hey, that's the right way. That's the right thing. Just me.
Ma'am, I'm sorry,
I think that's the best,
Yeah.
that's the best direction for him to go in, but that's just me.
do with it. Everybody good with that? Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. All right.
We want to talk about is the Parks and Recreation Department. They have an opportunity to reorganize the department. This is not something you need to provide approval of, but it is something we wanted to make sure you're aware of. We're taking the advantage because an individual retired from the department and allows us to take a look at the organizational structure. So I'll let Brian go through what we're proposing.
Okay, as Mr. Trout said, I want to make you aware that Parks and Recreation Director Carl Davis, who is here this morning, has requested a reorganization of his department, and that this request comes following the retirement of Paul Hart, the former Parks and Grounds Supervisor, who had been with Harnett County since 2011, following a career as a ranger with Raven Rock State Park. Paul's departure offered the department an opportunity to assess their organizational structure and see if any changes were warranted. Parks and Recreation currently operates with 2 supervisors reporting directly to the department head, a recreation program supervisor and the Parks and Grounds supervisor. This structure dates back to the department's creation, and over the years, additional staff and functions have been added. The department acquired the ground maintenance function, which had previously been contracted out and/or was under facilities. Additional staff have also been added over the last 6 years as additional parks and sites have been acquired and developed by the county. We believe that as Parks and Recreation continues to grow with the addition and development of new parks, greenway expansion, and other things, a reorganization will help each division focus on its specified area and provide a structure to accommodate future growth in staffing. The requested reorganization will disperse the duties currently under the Parks and Grounds Supervisor between 2 supervisors, a parks maintenance supervisor and a ground maintenance supervisor. Projects and park development, which is something the department has been doing in coordination with other grants and third parties that have been engaged as well over the years. Maintenance staff will be split between the parks maintenance and ground maintenance functions. In terms of the staffing impact, these changes will all be handled with reclassifications and title changes. No new full-time positions are being requested as part of this organization. Carl is adding a part-time natural resources manager, which he has available budget for in the current year, and that position has currently been posted. Again, this does include several reclassifications of filled and vacant positions, but that can also be covered within the current year's budget due to Paul's retirement and some lapsed salary. We are have requested a March 16th implementation date to coordinate with the start of the new pay period. And again, Mr. Trout has given his authorization to move forward with this.
Any questions or comments? Any discussion? Agree with this reorganization?
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
So the next item on is the regular meeting agenda for March 7th. The only item that we'll be looking at changing is that Representative Penny will actually be coming on the 21st, not the 7th. He had a scheduling conflict he informed us of today. So we'll actually move his appearance and presentation to that 21st agenda. Let's see. Oh, the other thing to remember is March 7th, we also have the legislative luncheon. So we'll have our regular meeting and then the legislative luncheons at 11:45. Call your attention, there are a number of board vacancies. Please take a look at the list. If you have a vacancy that applies to your district, please consider if you have a candidate for those positions. Remember, though, that as we look at the Harnett County Commission for Women and Youth, we have that on the agenda to take that down to 10. So they've been holding 5 vacancies on that board, so we will be in line. The plan will be, if it's approved, we'll begin as various members leave that represent districts, we will rebalance that as time goes on. So no individuals that are currently serving will need to leave the board until their time comes with regards to their would normally be a consideration for their reappointment. At that point, they will have to leave the board and a separate realignment with the proper district will occur. Let's see. I think that's all I have. Thank you, Jerry.
Very good.
Can you clarify, I see down here for the Commission for Women and Youth that there's 5 vacancies on the board. Can you clarify which districts those vacancies will be in? And is this going to be after we move to the 2 members per?
Yeah, so it shows that there's currently 1 member in District 1, 3 members in District 2, 2 members in District 3, 3 and 4, and 3 and 5. We'll need to let you know. Well, I guess it shows. No, we don't have that specifically. We'll find that out. I understand now what your question was.
Yeah, that's 12 members right there, if that's currently.
Right. So we'll get that information to you so you know where it stands. We'll redefine. We'll get the complete list of the commissioners, of the members of that county commission, and then which district they serve.
Okay. Thank you.
So by name, so that you'll have that to reference.
And can you give us some information on when does this board meet?
When did what?
When do they meet?
I'm not sure. Does anybody know when women and youth?
Because I don't hear anything on this board.
I'm not sure. I'll have to look it up.
The bylaws dictate once a month on the 4th Tuesday of the month. That's what
4th Tuesday.
That's what they're supposed to be doing.
Okay.
Thank you, Chris. 4th Tuesday.
We have a work session.
All right.
All right, very good. Mr. Snow, we don't have need for a closed session. All right.
Sir.
That being said, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion and second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposition?